Hello and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Before we even crack open the material we have for you today, and believe me, it is a fascinating stack of papers, I need to start with a very specific and very necessary disclaimer. This podcast will be distributed free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes.
And that's absolutely right. And for what we're about to get into, I mean, the word educational feels a little tame, doesn't it?
A little bit, yeah.
We're looking at material that is essentially a new user manual for the human mind. It's not so much a textbook as it is a kind of treasure map.
That is a perfect way to put it, because today we aren't just summarizing a book or a theory. We are, in a very real sense, stepping into a time machine.
Right.
I want you, our listener, to really picture this scene with us, because the atmosphere, the setting, it matters just as much as the words that were spoken.
It absolutely does.
The date is Wednesday, August 11th, 1965.
And it's late. It's 9:00 p.m., and we are in Elmira, New York.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a hot night. Sweltering, really. We're inside the large front room of a pretty unassuming apartment. The windows are thrown wide open to get any kind of breeze.
Which means the room is just filled with noise.
Right. You have the sound of traffic from the street below, cars, maybe a distant siren. It's gritty. It's real.
That's such a crucial detail. It grounds the whole thing. It's not happening on some serene mountaintop or in a soundproof temple. It's happening in a living room with the sounds of the city bleeding in. It's sticky. It's humid.
It's very, very normal.
Until it isn't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in the room, you have Jane Roberts, who's a writer, a poet. You have her husband, Robert Butts, sitting there taking meticulous notes. Seth usually calls him Joseph.
And you have a couple of witnesses, Bill and Peggy Gallagher. They're just friends, hanging out.
It's a social call, basically.
Yeah.
And then Jane closes her eyes.
And the whole energy of the room just shifts.
She starts to speak. But the way the witnesses describe it, and this gives me chills every time I read it, her voice takes on a hard edge. It gets louder. It develops this strange rhythm, almost a brogue, they say. And this voice, it just cuts right through all that traffic noise. This is Seth.
And for anyone who might be new to this, we are not talking about a ghost in a sheet going boo. Seth defines himself as an energy personality essence.
A very specific term.
Very. And he spoke through Jane Roberts for decades, dictating millions of words that became this incredible body of work. But today, we're zooming in on this one night.
We are. This is session 177 from the early sessions, book 4 of the Seth Material.
And we absolutely have to credit the publisher New Awareness Network for keeping this work available.
For sure. And our mission today, our deep dive, is to really unpack this one session because it is an absolute goldmine. It's psychology, it's metaphysics, and, well, it's surprisingly funny.
It really is. This one session has everything. You get these incredibly deep, sort of blink and you'll miss it insights into the nature of reality. But then you also have Seth cracking jokes.
He's annoyed.
He gets very annoyed. And he criticizes monks on pogo sticks, which we will absolutely get to, and then turns around and gives a guy practical mental tricks to cure his ulcer.
It's an incredible range. So let's just get into it. The session opens. Well, it opens with a conflict. Or maybe a petty grievance is a better way to put it.
Oh, it's definitely a petty grievance. Seth, this highly evolved, non-physical entity is complaining.
About what?
Intellectual property theft.
He's salty. He's actually salty that Jane, who he always calls Rupert, stole his idea.
Yes. He says, and this is a direct quote, "Our Rupert did indeed steal from me a few paragraphs in his book that were not rightfully his."
It's such a human moment. I mean, what happened here?
Well, from what you can piece together,
Yeah.
Jane was writing her own book in her waking life, a book on ESP, and she got to a chapter where she needed to explain multiple personalities. Seth had apparently explained the concept to her before, maybe privately or in a prior session, and she took it. She put the concept right into her manuscript without waiting for him to elaborate on it officially in a recorded session.
He said she whipped in and picked it from my palm.
That imagery is fantastic. Like he was holding out this little bonbon of cosmic wisdom, ready to present it, and she just snatched it and ran.
But the concept itself, the thing she stole, is really the first major pillar of our deep dive today. And we really have to slow down and unpack this one.
We do, because it challenges everything we think we know about who we are.
The topic is multiple personalities. Now, in 1965, and really even today for the most part, we think of multiple personality disorder, now called dissociative identity disorder, as a pathology.
Right. A sickness, a sign that the self has shattered.
Exactly. You're supposed to be one whole, continuous person. If you're fragmented, something has gone terribly wrong.
But Seth just flips that completely on its head. He uses the concept of multiple personalities to explain the normal state of human consciousness.
He's saying we're all like that.
He's arguing that effectively, yes, we are all walking around with multiple personalities operating under one roof.
Okay, let me be the skeptic here for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like one person, I wake up, I'm me. I drink my coffee, I'm me. I'm recording this deep dive. I still feel like me. That feels like one continuous story. I don't feel split.
You feel consistent, sure. But Seth would ask, are you really? Or do you just have a very convenient, very selective amnesia?
That's a deeply unsettling question.
It is. And he draws a direct line between what he calls the waking self, that's the you drinking coffee, and the dreaming self. And he says, quote, the conscious I is unaware of the I who dreams.
So he's not just treating the dreamer as some byproduct of brain chemistry. He's giving it its own identity, a separate I.
Precisely. Think about it. When you go to sleep tonight, a version of you wakes up in a totally different reality. That version of you can fly. It talks to relatives who have been dead for years. It solves bizarre problems. It experiences emotions that are just as real and vivid as anything you're feeling right now.
And then the alarm goes off.
And what happens to that guy?
He's gone. Poof. Or, I remember a tiny nonsensical fragment of his night. Something about a purple elephant.
Right. The waking you just dismisses the dreaming you as a hallucination. Oh, that was just a weird dream. But here's the kicker, and this is the part Jane stole for her book.
Okay.
Seth says the dreaming self is actually more familiar with the waking self than the other way around.
Wait, hold on. So the me that's dreaming tonight knows about the me that's sitting here right now.
Yes. The dream self knows who you are. It knows your anxieties, your schedule, your job. It knows about your physical body and its limitations. It's aware of the whole context of your waking life.
But I'm almost completely unaware of its life.
We're wearing the blinders. The waking self is the one with the amnesia. Seth says, indeed, the dreaming I seems more familiar with the waking self upon many occasions.
That's like having a roommate who watches you while you sleep, organizes your files, knows all your secrets, but you just refuse to believe they exist.
That is a perfect analogy. And Seth says, this basic structure, having different personalities operating within oneself, often with walls of amnesia between them, that's the exact mechanism behind what we label as clinical multiple personality cases.
So he's not saying those cases aren't real.
Not at all. He's suggesting that the people we diagnose as ill aren't necessarily broken. They just have a different arrangement of the interior walls. Their roommates are suddenly talking to each other or maybe fighting over who gets to use the kitchen, whereas for most of us, they just quietly work in shifts.
Wow. And this ties directly into what he says about hypnosis, doesn't it?
It does, because hypnosis, especially back then, was so controversial. Is it real? Is it just the power of suggestion? Are you just faking it?
A parlor trick.
Yeah, where you cluck like a chicken because someone told you to. But Seth takes a very firm stance here. He says, hypnosis is not creating an artificial state. It's a method to peel back the layers of the official ego.
To see what's underneath.
To steady the personality directly. And he uses this phrase that I just love. He says the personality is a changing action.
A changing action, not a thing.
Exactly. We think of ourselves as a noun. I am John. I am Mary. We think we're a statue. Seth says, no, you're a verb. You are a process. You are an action. And because you are an action, you can change. You contain multitudes. You are not fixed.
And if we're in action, well, actions can be directed. We can do things.
Yeah.
And Seth, he never just leaves this as high-minded theory, does he? He gives them homework.
He loves giving homework. It's his favorite thing.
He tells the group, okay, for your next assignment, I want you to study the appearance of space and time in your dreams. And my first thought reading that is, how? How do you study anything when you're unconscious? If the waking me is offline, who's the one taking notes?
You dissociate on purpose. You split your focus. This is where we get into what you called the practical magic side of the session.
Yep.
Seth says very clearly, you will be one self dreaming while another spying self takes notes.
A spying self. I love that imagery. It's like sending a secret agent into your own subconscious.
It implies we have this ability to stand apart from our own experience, even in what we think of as the deepest, most unconscious states, and just observe.
People who practice lucid dreaming talk about this now, but he's framing it here as a deliberate splitting of the personality. You're assigning roles.
Totally. It's like a director saying, okay, personality A, you're the star. Go have the adventure, fly the plane, fight the dragon. Personality B, you're the documentarian. You stand in the corner with a clipboard and a camera and just watch how time behaves in this reality.
Which brings us perfectly to the next part of this. Because if we can split our focus to study dreams, what else can we use that for?
Well, you could use it to help a confused Jesuit with his knot-tying hobby.
Or, even more practically, you can use it to help cure a stomach ulcer.
Right. And for this, we have to properly introduce Bill Gallagher. Seth keeps calling him the Jesuit.
Which is a playful jab, right? It's not a serious label.
No, not at all. It's because Bill had a theological background. He was very analytical, always wrestling with these big moral and philosophical questions, a deep thinker.
But on this particular night, Bill has two very specific, very grounded problems. First, a hobby. He makes these very complicated rope designs. And second, a very real, very painful stomach ulcer.
Let's start with the rope. It seems like a simple problem. Bill asks if he can use suggestion to help him come up with new patterns. He's kind of stuck creatively.
And Seth's answer introduces what I think of as subconscious outsourcing.
Yes. Describe that for us, because I think everyone has had an experience with this, even if they don't call it that. That sleeping on a problem phenomenon.
Exactly. You struggle with something all day, you go to bed frustrated, and you wake up and the answer is just there. It just pops into your head.
But we usually see that as a passive thing, right? An accident. Oh, it just came to me in the shower.
Right. Seth tells Bill to make it an active command. He basically says, stop trying to grind this out with your conscious mind. You're wasting your energy.
We all know that feeling, the grind. Staring at the blank page or the spreadsheet or the rope and just nothing.
And Seth says that's just inefficient. He tells Bill, suggest to your subconscious before you go to sleep or even just during the day, suggest that it should work on the designs for you.
While Bill is busy doing something else.
Yes. That is the crucial part. You give the order to the subconscious, hey, you, figure out this knot pattern. And then you consciously go to your day job, you drive your car, you make dinner, and in the background, this other part of you is working on the problem.
It's multitasking on a whole other level.
Seth says this will give you the satisfaction of making the time twice as valuable. It's literally like cloning yourself to get more work done.
But there's a catch, and it's a big one. He warns Bill very specifically. He says you shouldn't strain yourself trying to figure out whether or not the suggestions are being followed.
And that's the hardest part, isn't it? Because the conscious ego is a micromanager.
The ego is the worst boss you've ever had. It assigns a task, and then it hovers over your shoulder, tapping its foot, asking, are you doing it? How's it going? Are you finished yet?
And that just ruins the whole process.
It interrupts it. Seth's instruction is clear. Give the order, and then walk away. You have to trust the staff. You have to let that other part of you do its job in peace.
Okay, so that's the rope trick, subconscious outsourcing. But the ulcer, that's much higher stakes. This isn't about a Robbie. Bill is in physical pain.
Right, and the technique Seth gives him sounds almost insultingly simple.
It does. But as anyone who's ever tried to meditate knows, simple does not mean easy.
That's the truth. Seth calls it switching focus. And he says to Bill, you can learn, even a Jesuit can learn, to change the focus of your attention within seconds.
The basic idea here is pretty radical. Seth is arguing that a physical symptom, like pain from an ulcer, needs your conscious attention to sustain itself in any given moment.
It feeds on your focus.
Like a fire needs oxygen. That's a great way to put it. When you feel that twinge of pain, your natural reaction, your biological imperative, is to focus right on it. Oh, my stomach hurts. Is it getting worse? What did I eat? Why is this happening?
You zoom in on the sensation, you validate it, you give it all your energy.
And in doing so, you're actually pouring fuel on the fire. You are reinforcing the reality of the pain. Seth says, do the exact opposite. He says, quote, as soon as your focus of awareness is switched, the physical symptoms will vanish.
Vanish? That's such a bold claim, not it will lessen or it will feel better, it will vanish.
And he knows how it sounds.
Yeah.
He immediately follows up with, this is no Pollyanna gibberish.
I love that line, Pollyanna gibberish. He knows it sounds like that simplistic, toxic positivity thing. Just think happy thoughts, just ignore it.
But that's not what he's saying. He's not saying pretend it's not there. He's talking about a mechanical, psychic act. It's about physically moving the spotlight of your consciousness from one thing to another completely.
You know, it reminds me of when you get a paper cut, but you're really busy and you don't notice it for like an hour.
Yes.
And then you happen to look down and you see the blood, and in that instant...
ouch. Suddenly it throbs.
Exactly. But what about that hour before you noticed? The physical damage was there, the tissue was severed, But the experience of pain hadn't been constructed yet because your focus was somewhere else.
So Seth is telling Bill to learn how to do that on purpose, to voluntarily look away from the internal distress and focus with the same intensity on something else. A book, the traffic outside, a memory of a good meal.
He calls it a knack. He says it requires a knack, but it is simpler than it sounds.
And again, he suggests using the subconscious as a shortcut. You don't just have to rely on conscious willpower, which can fail. You can tell your subconscious, hey, you know how to do this. Next time I feel that pain, I want you to switch my focus for me.
It's so fascinating how he consistently treats the mind like a piece of incredibly sophisticated technology. It's not mystical in a religious sense, it's mechanical. It's like he's saying, you guys have this amazing computer, but you lost the user manual. Here, let me read a few pages to you.
Speaking of mechanics, let's talk about the mechanics of the session itself, because right in the middle of this incredibly deep discussion about psychic engineering and ulcers, the real world just barges in.
Then a knock at the door.
It's 9:16 p.m. Jane is deep in trance. She's speaking in that booming, hard-edged Seth voice, and suddenly there's a loud knock. It's the neighbors.
And we have to put this in context. In traditional old-school mediumship, the Victorian seances with the table tipping, startling the medium, was considered incredibly dangerous.
Oh yeah, the lore was that the ectoplasm would snap back into their body and give them a heart attack or something equally dramatic. The medium was this fragile, delicate vessel.
Very fragile. But here, Jane stops speaking instantly, mid-sentence. No shock, no gasping, no dramatic collapse. She just clicks off.
And the neighbors come in. It's a young couple. They have no idea what's going on. They just stop by to ask a quick question or drop something off.
Can you imagine being those neighbors for a second?
Oh, man.
You're walking down the hallway of your apartment building. You hear this deep, resonant, masculine voice with a weird accent coming from the Roberts apartment. It's loud. You knock. The door opens. And it's just Jane and her husband and two friends sitting in a dimly lit room.
And nobody in that room has a voice like the one you just heard through the door.
It must have been so confusing. Bill Gallagher actually points that out in the notes later. He says they must have heard the Seth voice, and then they walk in and see, well, no, Seth, it's just chilling.
It adds this layer of gritty reality to it. This wasn't happening in a vacuum. It was happening in a normal apartment building with thin walls and nosy neighbors.
And Jane's own experience is fascinating. She said afterwards that she heard the knock and knew what it meant, even while she was deep in trance.
Which goes back to what we were saying earlier about the multiple channels. She was dissociated, Seth was using the vocal cords, but a part of her, maybe that spying self, was still on duty, monitoring the environment, ready to hit the big red emergency stop button if necessary.
And she does. And once the neighbors leave at 9:35 p.m., she's right back in trance. And Seth is, well, he's amused by the whole thing.
He's always amused. He finds humans endlessly entertaining.
He says, I am always tempted to, when I meet your friends and acquaintances, to delve somewhat into their backgrounds. However, I shall, in this instance, restrain myself.
He's a gossip. He wants to read the neighbor's mail. He wants to spill all the tea on their past lives and their secret anxieties.
It's these little personality quirks that make him so compelling. He's not this solemn, distant, thou shalt not kind of biblical figure. He's witty. He teases Bill relentlessly. He even makes fun of himself.
There's a great line later where he says, if I cannot be merry, it is only because when I am merry, I speak too loudly and I embarrass my hosts.
He's self-aware. He knows he's the loud guest at the party.
He knows he's a loudmouth ghost embarrassment. It's so charming, and it serves a real purpose, I think. The humor disarms everyone. It keeps them from putting him on this impossibly high pedestal.
Absolutely. He's a teacher, but he's also a friend. He calls Bill our confused Jesuit one minute and our doubting Jesuit the next.
And Bill gives it right back to him. There's that moment where Bill makes a very clever philosophical point comparing Socrates to street cleaners, and Seth is genuinely impressed. He says, I am convinced, young man, that you planned these remarks. They are so good.
It's a dialogue. It's not a sermon being delivered from on high. It's collaborative jazz. The material is being created in that interaction between Seth and the people in the room.
So we've had the humor, we've had the practical magic for ulcers and rope. But then Seth shifts gears dramatically. He decides it's time to tackle the biggest topic of all.
The God concept.
Yeah. He announces almost casually that he's going to start a new program, as he calls it, to study God and something he calls pyramid gestalts.
And pyramid gestalts is a classic Seth term. We could do a whole deep dive just on that. But the simple version is, well, it's a model of consciousness.
Explain that a little.
Imagine a pyramid. The base is made up of countless individual souls, like us. But they aren't just separate bricks. They combine their energy and awareness to form a new, higher level of consciousness. A single entity made of many.
And then that entity does the same with other similar entities.
Exactly, and they form an even higher level, and so on all the way up the pyramid. It's a collective consciousness structure.
So it's a hierarchy, but a connected one. Not a king ruling over disconnected subjects, but a whole that is greater than the sum of its parts.
Precisely. And Seth says these massive Gestalt consciousnesses have experiences that are completely beyond human comprehension. But, and this is the really comforting part, he says they're still concerned with the least, with the existence of the least among you.
So as big and powerful as they aren't indifferent.
Not at all. There's a connection that runs all the way from the top to the bottom. But then he pivots from this cosmic structure to something more grounded, religion. And specifically, he takes aim at Buddhism.
Which I found really surprising when I first read this, because usually you think of Eastern philosophies as being more aligned with this kind of metaphysical material,
Yeah.
reincarnation, the illusion of reality, inner exploration.
Totally. And Seth gives them credit for that. He says, Buddhism does indeed come closer in essence to reality than other religions. He acknowledges that they understand physical matter is camouflage. They get the importance of the inner world.
But then comes the but, a very big but.
A very big but. He says that in their application of these truths, they have either gone too far or not far enough.
Okay, let's break that down. Too far in what sense?
Too far in their tolerance of physical suffering. Seth's argument is that by focusing so intensely on the spiritual, on the fact that the inner world is the real world, they have ended up devaluing and ignoring the physical world.
And this is where he brings out this incredible, almost cartoonish image to make his point.
The pogo sticks.
The monks on pogo sticks. He says, quote, "It is all very well for monks to utilize astral projection. It is all very well for them to skitter through space as if they were on pogo sticks."
Skitter through space on pogo sticks. I mean, it's just such a ridiculous, hilarious image for something as profound as astral projection.
It completely demystifies it. But his point is deadly serious. He's saying, while these enlightened monks are off bouncing around the astral plane having a great time, they're telling their followers on the ground,
better worlds are to come, so ignore this agony and this hunger and this pain. Be in ecstasy while your belly bloats.
and then he just drops the hammer. He says, this is not human, and it is far less than godly.
That is a powerful, powerful condemnation.
It cuts right to the absolute core of the entire Seth philosophy, which is this concept of value fulfillment. Seth is so adamant that we are not here to escape physical reality. We're not in a prison we need to break out of. We're here to learn how to create within it, to learn how to manipulate the camouflage, to solve the problems of the physical world using our inner power.
So from Seth's point of view, ignoring starvation or disease because it's all just an illusion anyway is a complete failure. It's a massive failure, a betrayal of the purpose of being human. He says, quote, "It is not to any religion's benefit that people starve. The goal is to bring that spiritual knowledge and power down into physical reality to improve it.
To stop the murder in the streets, to feed the hungry.
Not to just float above it all on your spiritual pogo stick, feeling detached and enlightened while the world burns."
I love that. It's such a proactive, engaged spirituality. It demands that you participate. It validates our lives here. It's saying your job, your relationships, your struggles with your body, they matter. They aren't just obstacles on the path to enlightenment.
They are the path.
They are the path. You are in a position to understand it and to use it. That's the mandate. Okay, so we've gone from stolen ideas to ulcers to God to a critique of Buddhism. The formal session ends at 10:50 p.m. Jane snaps out of it. They all kind of relax, start chatting, probably shaking off the intensity of that last part.
But the night's not over, not by a long shot.
No.
Yeah.
Because at 11 p.m., the after party begins. And this is that rapid-fire finale we teased in the intro.
This is a really rare and special part of the session. Usually a session is a structured event. Seth talks, Robert takes notes verbatim, it ends. But here, the notebook is put away. They're just talking amongst themselves, and Seth comes back just to hang out.
And the description of how this happens is wild. The notes say Jane is switching in and out of trance at the wink of an eye.
Yeah, Robert Butts notes that she's just popping in and out. Seth will jump in to answer a question or make a joke, and then she'll be Jane again, and then Seth will be back.
It sounds like a bad connection on a Zoom call, but intentional.
Yeah.
Or like someone is just flipping a light switch on and off, on and off.
It really demonstrates the incredible level of control that Jane was developing at this point. She wasn't being possessed in a way that left her incapacitated. She was learning how to toggle the switch. She was becoming a true master of her own consciousness.
And Seth is just,
Yeah.
he's just chatting. He's asking about slang words. He's talking about Danish history.
And teasing Robert, hinting at a past life of Robert's in Denmark that involved some unfortunate circumstances.
Which is such a great tease. Oh, I could tell you all about your time in Denmark, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to embarrass you in front of your friends.
It's a classic friend move.
Yeah.
But in the middle of all this casual, rapid-fire banter, Seth says something so profound about the nature of their entire project.
What does he say?
He says, quote, "Action changes me and everyone in this room."
Wow. Action changes me.
This is a critical insight. We have this tendency to think of channeled entities or spiritual guides as these static, perfect, unchanging fonts of wisdom. They know everything, they're complete, and they just hand down the information from the mountain.
And Seth says, no, I'm changing too. I'm evolving through this process with you.
He says, "I am not completed or finished or fulfilled any more than you are."
That just levels the playing field completely. It means this isn't a lecture. It's a collaboration. Seth is learning and growing from being in a room with Bill and his ulcer and Jane and her stolen paragraphs and Robert and his Danish past life. The interaction is the point.
It goes right back to that idea of personality being an action, not a fixed thing. It applies to him, too. If he stops changing, he stops existing in a meaningful way. Stagnation is a kind of death. Change is life.
The session finally wraps up for good at 11:14 p.m. Jane ends on a note of humor, her eyes dark, having switched back and forth so effortlessly. It really feels like they just had this incredible dinner party with a guest from another dimension.
Which, I mean, essentially they did.
So after all that,
Oh.
where does this leave us? We've covered a lot of ground in this one session.
We really have. And if I had to distill it all down to one core theme for session 177, I think the word would be integration.
Integration, how so?
Well, just look at the topics we've covered. First, there's the integration of the self. The waking self and the dreaming self aren't strangers who live in different countries. They're partners who share a house. We need to integrate them.
Okay.
Second, the integration of the mind and body. You can use your mind to directly heal your ulcer or to help you design a rope pattern. They aren't separate systems. They are a constant feedback loop.
And the third?
The integration of the spiritual and the physical. You don't escape to God by ignoring the world and its problems. You find God by engaging with the world, by using your inner power to make the physical world better.
It's all about breaking down the barriers we create. The barrier between me and my dream self. The barrier between conscious and subconscious. The barrier between what we call holy and what we call human.
Seth is basically shaking them by the shoulders and saying, take down the walls. Stop putting your life into all these little separate boxes. It's all one interconnected system. Learn how to use it.
And have a good laugh while you're at it. Don't be the overly serious monk on the pogo stick, but also don't be the miserable, suffering saint. Be more like Seth, a little loud, endlessly curious, and totally willing to call out a confused Jesuit when you see one.
Absolutely. The humor is part of the integration.
Now, if this deep dive has sparked your curiosity, and I really hope it has, you owe it to yourself to go directly to the source. We are just scratching the surface here.
Oh, barely. There are volumes and volumes of this material. The early sessions like this one are so raw and fascinating. And then the later books like The Nature of Personal Reality, there's just life-changing operating manuals.
So here is your call to action. Go to sethcenter.com/early sessions. That's sethcenter.com/the early sessions. Look for the early sessions books. Read session 177 for yourself. See all the nuance and detail we just didn't have time to cover.
And please, support the publishers, New Awareness Network. They have kept this material in print for decades, and it's truly a labor of love for them.
We mentioned at the start that we wanted to leave you with a provocative thought. Something for you to chew on tonight as you get ready for bed.
Right. We talked a lot about the dreaming self. And Seth's whole point is that that version of you is, in many ways, smarter, freer, and has access to more information than the you who is listening to this right now.
And yet most of us completely ignore it. We treat it like a crazy uncle we lock in the attic every night.
So here's the question we want to leave you with. If you could send a message to the version of you that wakes up when you go to sleep tonight, the CEO of the night shift, so to speak, what would you ask it to do for you?
Would you ask it to solve a problem that's been bugging you?
Would you ask it To work on healing a physical pain?
Or would you just ask it to show you something amazing? To have a good time and bring back a souvenir?
Think about that as you're brushing your teeth tonight. Maybe, just maybe, you can try what Bill was told to do. Leave a note on the desk for the night shift.
And see what's waiting for you in the morning.
You might be surprised.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive. We'll see you in the next reality.